Right, so welcome again, Sally and Jackie. Great to see you again. Got limited time today, so I think let's just dive in to some practice today. I'll share my screen with you, and we'll have a look at today's lesson. And quotes and so on. So let me share my screen. Okay, where are we going? Right, great. I just managed to get that one off. So let's there we go. Okay, can you read that?
Yeah. Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you it is important. It is the witness of your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but to choose to change your mind about the world. You make it a bit bigger. I don't know if my eyesight's waning a bit, but I don't have glasses, so I have to have bigger print. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Good. Yeah.
So that's from the text. Really quite profound. We've used it. I've mentioned this quote before, but he's really just telling us in a paragraph how this world works. Projection makes perception. All you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. So it's what you project onto it that it is. There is no more than that. It is not less. So one has to bear in mind that everything's your projection. Therefore, to you it is important. The witness of your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. So this is the mirror effect, the witness to your state of mind. The outside picture of an inward condition. And then in the famous line, as a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Other man thinketh, a guy called James Allen used that when he wrote a book. As a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. So we perceive as we're thinking, not the opposite. Not I think because I have a sensory perception. I think and then I perceive based on my thought system. Therefore, the conclusion to all of that is seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world, which is always worth remembering. It's one of those kind of taglines in the course. When you're tempted to go and change the world, rather focus on changing your mind about the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so that prevents you going on journeys trying to seek in form what you'll never find in form. Happiness, satisfaction, fulfillment, by trying to change the external world, but rather choose to change your mind about the world, which requires nothing other than a shift in your mind and changing your perception. It's really so simple, and yet you think of the enormous efforts the ego goes to try and change the world, as opposed to just change your mind about it. I mean, which is easier? It's obvious. So why do we choose the ego rather than the simple, obvious truth? Because it's trying to convince us that that's the way. No, it's the external and it's the goal, and you've got to work really hard, and one day you'll get there. And it's a mindset we've been brought up with, and we've bought into it. Most people have bought that and said, yes, I believe that story. One day it will work, and they keep on it. And you could almost say the beginning of the spiritual journey is when they go, no, I realize that's a lie. It's not going to work. Because then it calls everything into question, doesn't it? You start going, well, I base my life on a lie then.
I often wonder about the plastic pollution. You know, you get photographs of these great big seas of waves of plastic floating on the sea, and everyone says, oh, we've got to use less plastic and we've got to cut back and all that. And I think, oh, it's just a mirror of our minds. And I wonder what, you know, plastic floating around on the sea would indicate. I think I did do some clearing on it once. I wasn't quite sure what it would be like.
Well, it's what it is for you.
Polluted mind, or
Yeah. Pollution, waste. It's a throwaway mindset, isn't it? So I'll just chuck it away. It doesn't matter. Careless, unskillful living. Just throw the plastic wherever it ends up in the sea. No real concern for the impact of your actions.
until you see the pictures, and then there's a bit of guilt there. Oh, one of those bottles was mine, you know.
Yeah.
As somebody who used to work, he's write on a plastics magazine, would you please, doing the environmental stuff, albeit from the perspective of the plastics industry. There's a good argument that, you know, it's not the plastics, it's the human behavior. And when you actually look at anything in landfill, you know, a lot of it doesn't decompose anyway, but plastics actually can save so much waste. So there's, you know, medical equipment that needs to be plastic. Plastic is recyclable. There are a lot of arguments for why plastic doesn't deserve to be demonized in the way it is, and whether we really are actually saving waste by some of the other things we're doing. So perhaps all the judgment about it that's being put out there, you know, plastic's bad, we just see a world where plastic is causing issues.
Oh, you see, he's telling us, you see what you want to see. And the world the ego wants to see is one that's polarized, with its good and bad, right and wrong. Someone or something's always to blame. So you notice how people latch on, and the media, you know, do this. Oh, there's a new target. We're going to blame something. So I know plastics, you know, enemy number one now. So we're gonna target that. And I think they know, you know, the media companies know that if they tell a blame story, that resonates with most of their audience.
Yeah,
because we're all looking to project our guilt onto someone or something. You know, that's a fundamental egoic need. So you read the story about plastic, you know, these terrible plastic companies, or, you know, I mean, there's all these things people love to hate, pharmaceutical, terrible pharmaceutical, you know, and so we project all of that negativity onto them, and we feel a bit better about ourselves when we do that, temporarily, of course.
yeah.
And I think the media feeds that. They know what sells. Why do people want to read these stories? Do they really want to know about the plastic in the environment and how much there is and what the problem is, or does it feed the negative ego? It feeds the ego story to do that. So, you know, everyone is actually buying their own self-concept, always.
Yeah,
it's a great marketing insight. They're always buying their own self-concept. Whether it's news they're consuming or a product or a service, they're buying something that matches their self-concept. And marketers who are smart know, if I can match my product or service to people's self-concept, and that's a common kind of self-concept, then I'll sell lots of my product or service, even if it's completely pointless and useless otherwise, or it's damaging to the environment or whatever. If it matches people's self-concept, they will buy it because there's an energetic match.
yeah.
So it's a different way of looking at marketing, really, and understanding it. And most of it is egoic self-concept. There's very few things that are being sold that are higher self. You know, I guess, you know, there are courses and spiritual teachings and whatever, but, you know, most of the things that are sold to us are trying to match us with an egoic self-concept and get us to resonate with that. And of course, so what happens if you go on this spiritual path, you're not a very good consumer anymore. You're not going to play a role as the hungry consumer who's always wanting more, which feeds the economy. You're going to go, well, actually, I want to be, more minimalist. These things don't matter to me, which, is actually what the planet needs. We need more people like that than more consumers. But the mindset we grew up with is designed to produce a consumer society.
Mhm.
You look at things like social media and tablets now, and the games kids play. It's all designed to get them very addicted to short-term instant gratification. I want it now. Okay, great. I can just go to Amazon or wherever, shop, get it ordered, get it delivered tomorrow. No kind of, okay, but actually, do I really need this? Do I really want it? Am I going to save up for it? Because no, you can get credit, and so it's designed to fuel a thought system which is false and is incorrect. It's taking us in the wrong direction as a species. And the spiritual teachings are the antidote to that. But they're not going to make you popular in the mainstream. They was at the moment, they're very alternative. And they don't particularly make money. That's also the problem.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
How do you make money? By telling people just to detach from everything and minimize. And well, you're saying don't spend. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm telling you not to, because you actually don't need anything outside of yourself. Everything you need is already there. And if you really do your job correctly, even as a spiritual teacher, well, the person might do one course or program, and then, well, if you've done your job, they know who they are. They don't really need you anymore, do they? That's job done. So it's not necessarily good for business, which is probably why it's not the basis of many business models. But because the truth is true, and it just stands apart. What I like about Yeshua and the course is that he's not concerned about any of that stuff. He's not concerned about a business model or generating revenue. He's transcended that. It's meaningless. Money is meaningless to him. So he's just going to give us the truth, and then it's up to us how we take it. Okay, so Jackie, do you want to read first couple of paragraphs, please?
Okay, today's inspirational quote reiterates the simple truth that to change anything for the better in the world, we must first change our minds about the world, and explains why. Need for the intro of our book.
Yeah.
Because the world we perceive as outside ourselves is a projection of our own subconscious minds. It's really a mirror that shows us what's in this unconscious mind of which we are mostly unaware.
I mean, that's really hugely important. And if you can get that, you have the essence, really, the key insight that's going to help you awaken.
Yeah.
Because you can now
all of it, isn't
understand
it?
the world is just a mirror showing me my own beliefs.
Yeah.
I can now get to see those beliefs in a mirror. That's very useful, because otherwise, how do I see those beliefs? They're buried in my unconscious mind, and I can't get to them.
Yeah.
So the very mechanism of projection, the mirror, is that the ego has invented, is the way to free our minds.
Yeah.
And it's to realize that. Then you look at everything differently, don't you? You'll see everything as a pointer to your ego, to help you to uncover it and to let it go.
Yeah.
And that is a huge reinterpretation of the world. That changes your perception of everything, doesn't it? Instead of looking for some kind of outcome on the level of form, you just go, no, my whole point here, the whole point of being here is to use the world to help me to see this ego and then let it go.
Yeah.
And so if I'm doing that, then I'm on purpose. I'm living my life on purpose, even if on the level of form things seem to be going terribly wrong. So to take your situation, the messy divorce, but it's actually perfect for you, because it's really helping you to see your own self-concept and undo it. And that's the whole point of your life. The point was not to have a happy family and happy marriage, not to say that you can't have that. Some people can. But for you, in the end, the point is you must uncover your self-concept and let it go. So for you, that that's a great opportunity that you've been presented with to learn that in that situation. Other people, they might have a happy marriage, but they might get other lessons in other areas of their life, quite possibly, because we've all got stuff, and you need the lessons showing up in the mirror to show you the stuff, so that you can let go of the self-concept that's generating.
Yeah.
So it's
Things can work for a
absolutely key
while.
insight.
I have a belief, I don't know if it's right or not, that things can work, or seem to work for quite a while, and then when the time's right for you to awaken, Spirit says, right, that's enough of that. Let's make that truly awful, so you can't even consider going back, and now you've got to do the work.
Yeah, I think there does come a point for a lot of people where it's too painful. The awakening comes in your darkest hour, when it's too painful, and you go, something must change. I've had enough. You're down on your knees and you say, okay, show me a way, to whatever. You may not even believed in God, but at that point you go, I'm so desperate that, then you start asking, don't you? You say, help me, whatever power, is out there. And that request obviously is to your own higher self. So it's heard immediately. It's going into your deeper mind. And if you've really sincerely made that kind of request, then things will change.
Yeah.
Very often after that, something happens to change the situation, to give you the opportunity to start your hero's journey of working out of that, changing your mind through the journey that Spirit takes you on. But it has to be a genuine, okay, I've really, I've had enough. It's enough now. Enough suffering. I really, more than everything else, I want to change.
Yeah.
It's got to be a better way. And that's, that's when transformation happens. That was in fact what birthed the whole course. Helen and Bill went, there's got to be a better way. We're just really dissatisfied with the way we live our lives, with how things go in our department and all the conflict. And, in sort of some kind of desperation, Bill just said, I'm tired of this. I'm sick and tired of this. Surely there must be a better way. And Helen agreed. And, so then that was the catalyst for a major transformation for because Jesus Christ himself came and spoke to them, said, okay, well, I've heard your prayer, so you're obviously receptive channels. So here we go. Here's this teaching, which is for you, but it's also for the world. Would it have happened if they hadn't been receptive? Probably not. They hadn't had that, okay, we're looking for a better way, and joined in that, then probably it wouldn't have happened, because Spirit can only come in where it's well received.
Yeah.
Or you get the baseball bat. It's not well received, but life just keeps hitting you over the head, and eventually it's just like, okay, it's smashed. I'm broken and bruised and battered, and okay, I surrender. There must be a better way. And the Spirit, you could have done it much more easily if you just listened to the little things. If things are a bit awry and you listen and you adjust, then you don't need a baseball bat to smash you over the head, because you're listening to the little things.
Yeah.
But if you're stubborn, then often you need a major crisis to awaken, which then will come as, well, that's what you needed then to awaken. So it seems to be a crisis, but it's actually bringing the ego into your awareness, and it's horrible. It looks awful, because the ego is awful. So that's the way of the cross. You wait until something really terrible happens, and then hopefully you have some kind of a shift, and that can happen. Eckhart Tolle, he's had no spiritual awareness virtually for the first 29 years of his life, and then he just got so unhappy that it was too much, and his ego just kind of cracked. Byron Katie had a similar experience. In her mid-40s, she was in a rehab institute, addicted to drugs and alcohol, and really had made a mess of her life up to that point. And then one day just woke up on the floor and was like, I just get it, I'm clear. Suddenly the ego just dropped and she could see clearly. So it can happen, spontaneous awakening, as with those two, but it's quite unusual. Generally, it's more systematic, gradual process that you work on, and you get realizations bit by bit. But in the end, doesn't you get there, and possibly the second option is a bit smoother, less painful than the first.
Yeah.
The first one can be really seemingly soul destroying, going really into a very bad life state to come out of it, because that's what you needed. Your ego is so stubborn that you needed something really, really terrible to question everything and help you to deconstruct it.
I remember lots of times in my life, 3 are coming to mind as you're talking, where I kept saying there must be another way, there must be another way. And it was pre-Course in Miracles. But the first time kinesiology showed up and helped me with my son who was not well. The second time it was he was not coping at school and he was getting quite suicidal. And I just kept asking, but I wasn't in receiving mode. So it took me a while to get the download of what to do. And so I homeschooled him. And then the third one was my marriage. I remember I'd go out for walks and I'd be going, there must be another way. There must be another way. That took me the longest to get that one. I let him do it in the end. It's funny, my memory of it is that I did keep asking, but I just wasn't in receiving. I wasn't receiving the guidance. I wasn't open enough or ready.
Not ready to listen. Or necessarily take action. There's that joke about the blonde who she's desperate. She has financial difficulty and got kids to raise, and single mum, and so she's desperate to win the lottery. So she keeps praying and asking God for help and guidance. Please can I win the lottery? And then eventually, after weeks of this, this voice kind of booms out, go and buy a ticket.
Yeah.
Because you've got to take some action. You've got to be willing, asking, and then not being open to listening and taking the action. Okay, well, if you get the guidance, then you need to follow it.
Or the one where the guy's in the flooded house and he's on top of the roof and he says, God help me, and a boat comes along and he goes, no, God, and it goes on like that, doesn't it? So maybe I was,
and then it's like, oh, I'm drowning, and it's like, but I sent a boat and I sent a helicopter, and you didn't do anything. You were expecting something else.
So I suspect that's what happened to me. I suspect perhaps people were telling me, well, you could homeschool or you could take them out of school, whatever it might be. And I wasn't really ready or wasn't willing. It's interesting in retrospect to look back on it, to try and work out what was going on then. Now I'm much more open to listen.
Oh, it's learning. You've got to overcome the blocks. So we don't listen, and then we suffer because of it. And then as you spiritually awaken, you learn to listen more. So it's a whole lot easier if I just listen to the guidance to start with. My life flows forward, much smoother, more flowing way than if I'm blocked. Get stuck in the ego. So understanding this truth, you want to read the next one, about projection being the mirror, the world being the mirror, because of this mechanism of projection, is like a major. When someone gets that, that's the start of spiritual awakening, because then they can start to understand, I now have a mechanism, as Carl Jung says, to make the darkness conscious, or as Yeshua says, to see the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, so that I can deal with them, I can let them go. As long as you perceive the world as something external to you and not related to your mindset, then you're going to view it as a victim, aren't you? Well, why is this happening to me? Some kind of external world that's separate to me is doing this to me, and I have no effect on it. I'm not responsible. Well, then you can't learn from it, and you don't see that there's a mirror effect and that it's really designed to help you. So it's absolutely a key insight in the awakening process. I'd say it's the key insight. If someone accepts that, then they will start to take responsibility, because with that insight, you have to take responsibility. Well, okay, well, I'm projecting it. It's all a reflection of my inner state of mind. So I must change my mind then. You know, the answer, once you accept this teaching, is obvious. You must go within and you must change your mind. It's about your own beliefs.
So I work with a lot of people that understand this. I also see that sometimes they get into the, I'm broken, I need fixing. I've got to clear all this stuff, so then I am a functioning individual. But it's the next step, isn't it? Realizing that you're part of the whole. It's one mind. So then there's no self-punishment or guilt or, you know, I need fixing thing.
Yeah, or I'm trying to become a better separate self. That's what a lot of people are trying to do. Oh, well, I messed up there, but if I keep working, I can become a better individual.
Yeah.
That's, we discussed this a while ago. The personal growth mind industry is designed really for that, to help you to become a better individual person in whatever way that is for you. You might, want more health or wealth, or some courses and teachers try and give it all. We'll do your health, and we'll do your wealth, and we'll do your relationships. Those are the key areas, and you're just going to have a much better life, and everything's going to work well for you. And that often sells very well, because people want the outcome on the level of form. They don't want to be told, no, actually this course is going to deconstruct your self-concept. In fact, it's going to annihilate your self-concept. That's the only way you're really going to be sustainably happy. You have to annihilate your self-concept. It's not something most people want to hear. But Yesh is giving it to us straight, because he's got no investment in us doing it or not. It's saying, well, this is the only thing that's going to work. You must go to the self-concept, and you must let that go. And then, yes, you can have a happy dream while you're here, without any attachment to outcome. So you're not trying to make yourself a better separate self. You're deconstructing the separate self. You're letting go of the separate self and all of its attachments. So it means a complete relinquishment of everything that the separate self believes, and everything it values, and everything it attaches to, which is you. That's your life. All of that's got to go. So yeah, it's pretty radical. For a lot of people, it's too radical. They want something that's a bit more in line with their ego, and they can, well, I can improve myself, but not completely let go of myself. I'll just become a better separate self, an enhanced version of me. But who's the me? It's still a self-concept. So then on that path, the ego just evolves with you. You kind of go, okay, so you want to develop your skills, you want to become a better whatever it is. Okay, I'll go with you, and I'll just get you to attach to that as your new identity. And it usually does that quite successfully. So that's why often, if people have succeeded, they've the 8-type personalities, and they really work and they succeed, they've actually spiritually, they haven't really grown, because they've got more attached to a self-concept. Now they're very, very identified with that new self-concept of being the high achiever. And if that's removed from them, as we're talking about the existential crisis of retirement, that gets removed suddenly, and they have no idea who they are. They're completely lost, because they were so identified with that self-concept. So it's actually not taking you. I'd say that it's probably in the right direction overall. If you go more into let's say you're in inertia in the victim, and then you say, okay, I'm going to move more into trying to improve myself, and like whatever the goal is, you use that as a way to engage in various self-improvement activities. Although you're still fostering an ego concept, what's going to happen is that you're going to be able to let it go, and ultimately you'll get to the point of realizing that that's false. It'll take you into the realization that, okay, that's just not true. That whole self-concept, and then it takes you into the third lane. So I talk about tamas, which is inertia, then rajas, which is go, trying to improve yourself, and then sattva is knowledge. It takes you into that third domain of, actually, I've got to let go of all of that rajasic striving to be something more, and just accept that I already am perfect. But you needed to move from inertia to rajas, the second lane, and then from there, to the next lane. So in some ways, this kind of teaching is for people who have done the rajas thing. They're reasonably functional, and they've kind of hit a wall, and they've gone, okay, but that's not really working for me anymore. And then, okay, so what, where do I go? Can't go backwards into inertia. Where do I go from, yes, I've worked really hard and I've achieved stuff, but I'm still not happy and fulfilled. Well, then you have to go into into sattva, which is, the spiritual domain of knowledge. So in many ways, the personal growth industry prepares people for an awakening. It'll bring them to the point where, they're ready for a genuine spiritual transformation. So, it's all part of a bigger picture. It's all okay, but it's not, if you get stuck there, that's not going to awaken you. You've got to move beyond that. Trying to improve your separate self is not going to awaken you. Okay, so where are we? To change our perception in this way.
To change our perception in this way, we must also change our core beliefs about ourselves, which is our limited concept or ego, because our perceptions are a result of the emotions, thoughts, and beliefs that this self-concept produces.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's what I keep doing.
Must change our core beliefs. Because core beliefs are the self-concept. And then our perceptions rest on all of that. Emotions, thoughts, beliefs rests on the self-concept, as is demonstrated here in the diagram. So what underlies perception is emotion. What underlies that is thought. What underlies that is belief. And at the very core of it is your desire. What do I desire to be? Do I desire to be a separate self, individual, separate, unique, different, special? Or do I desire to be oneself in this situation? And that desire or prayer is the level of the miracle. Because that's your intention, which is how it all started. The tiny mad idea was just a tiny desire to be something other than God, other than what you were. So that's really at the core of belief, thought, emotion, and perception that are false. If you change your mind at this core level, you realize I'm one self, then my belief must change. Okay, so this is actually happening for me. I'm not a victim of this cruel external world. I don't have to get angry. This is happening for me to show me my false belief, and this is helping me to realize who I really am. See, it's a total switch in your belief. Thought is, okay, well, if this is helpful, this is actually positive. This is serving me. I can let this go, and I don't have to feel the negative emotions anymore. I can let them go. And now I perceive the same situation, but I don't have the anger and the fear and anything anymore, because I've let those go through this process of going within, and then from my now true desire, transforming it. So what you go down into the ego, you find it there, you change your mind at the core level, and then it ripples back up, and your belief, thought, emotion, and perception change. So I think a very good diagram showing us how this levels of mind actually work, and explaining how the forgiveness process, why it's effective, because it undoes each level. And that instrument for peace just takes you through the different levels, so that you can ask questions about each level. That's what I would like. So, so you put it in there, and each question is about a level, and then it's showing you how those levels all stack up. By guiding you through the worksheet, it's showing you how those levels are all interrelated, and the one relies on another. So that eventually you can just get to the key point, which is, I don't have to believe this anymore. I can let it all go. But I have to have explored it and really seen, how this whole system works. Okay, so any questions on the diagram or any of that?
No, just that I found it very useful to do the very small stuff. I just couldn't read the meter or something and go through it, and it came up with I'm useless and I can't do it, and fundamental stuff that's quite important.
So that's the thing. You don't necessarily have to have a major crisis to get to your core belief. Just a minor irritation about something can get you there if you know how to do it. You do this inquiry process, which is amazing, really. So you can get to the core of the ego just from a meter not being read.
Yeah.
Something going slightly wrong that just annoys you. And, there's often many times in a day you'll have that. So each one is really an opportunity for salvation, as he says. If you truly forgave it and went through this process of forgiveness or letting go, then it would bring you to the point of seeing your core belief, realizing that that's false, letting it go. Then you change your perception of the situation completely, and you've just undone a huge part of the ego. And the not being able to read the meter can do that for you. They're quite extraordinary, really. So enlightenment is always there, not something you have to go looking for. It's there in every perception you have. Especially if there's a challenge, there it is, right there. You just let it go, and then you access the true knowledge that underlies that.
Yeah, because most things are like feeling powerless. It's just like a tip of the iceberg, isn't it? I felt powerless, unable to do it, just wanted to bypass it, push it onto someone else do it for me. But then I stayed in the powerlessness around that subject. So it's fascinating. I find it really interesting, all the little things.
And then you see the self-concept. Oh, I'm feeling powerless. I'm feeling like a victim, which is the feeling the ego wants you to feel, because that keeps you away from the true power that you are. You feel disempowered rather than all-powerful, and then it uses these issues to seemingly confirm its little beliefs. If you understand that, as I said, that's key insight, isn't it? You can really use that insight to then get to the core of your belief about yourself and really let it go and free your mind, which is amazing. I mean, so simple. Just look at anything with this perspective in mind, and that can free you. That can awaken you. That issue, if you really took it to its extreme. Said, okay, that issue, whatever it was, you really go deep. Like a good example would be Ramana. He had one issue. He had an issue with death. His father died a few years before. He was 16. His father died when he was about 13, and so he had this thing with death. He hadn't quite dealt with it, and then this issue came up, and he felt this intense fear of death. But instead of shying away from it, he went into it and he looked at it and he really said, well, who suffers then? Who is fearing death? Who is it that's fearing death? That was the question he asked. And he came to the realization through that inquiry that there was no one who was fearing death. In other words, there was no separate self actually to fear death. So the whole thing was an illusion. And he got that at a very deep level just from one issue, and that awakened him. Just that one problem by doing a deep self-inquiry on it. As I said, he probably had many lifetimes of spiritual practice beforehand, but nevertheless, inquiring deeply on one issue And he did it in a few minutes. That awakened him to his higher self, and he remained there for the rest of his life. So, anything can be used if you do this process thoroughly with all of the little bits of irritation and anger and resentment and fear and whatever you experience in the day. It's the fast track. It's going to awaken you, because everything's then being used to reveal the ego, and then there's only one choice. If you can't dwell in it, because that's obviously hell. You must let it go.
It's easy to. Why can we not see ourselves? Can we not see ourselves?
Yeah,
It's
we
just
can
a
do,
bit
well.
weird. So when we do this clearing work, but it's important not to be clearing from the ego. Eventually, you get to the point where you need to let go of the idea that you're the person doing the clearing. That the ego is the beliefs, the emotions, whatever, the blocks, and that well, I guess that's a part of handing it over to the Holy Spirit, isn't it? So in many ways, when the Course says hand it over to the Holy Spirit, that's taking you out of the belief that you are the separate self, because it's easy to clear from the point of view of thinking you are a person, improving yourself and improving your happy dream. But if you recognize that there's a spiritual process going on, and you aren't that person, but you are clearing the blocks. I'm not really explaining it, but it's different, isn't it? You have to be able to let go of the idea that you're improving your life, really, and recognizing that.
I mean, this may well improve your life in the level of form, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to free your mind from this world entirely. As a byproduct, yes, your life might temporarily improve and circumstances might improve, but there's no attachment to outcome, because you're going beyond the outcome. You're saying, I'm trying to wake up to my true self, which is beyond human.
Yeah.
So it's inside out again. What changes within, then it changes outside as a reflection, rather than going, well, I need to change outside in order to feel happy within, which is the more commonly used approach in personal growth and so. Well, when the thing is, well, when you achieve that, when you get that, when you do that, then you'll be happy. So then you chase it. And of course, there's always someone willing to tell you how to get to your dream, whatever your dream is. I'll teach you. Massive industries, guys charging fortunes for various forms of coaching, and because they're going to help you get to your desired outcome. And then when you get there, they always paint, no, then you'll be happy. That's the assumption, isn't it? Underlying all these, I actually just listened to a webinar on presentations, and it's always the same. Now, when you get there, then you'll be a successful business owner. Everything will go swimmingly. You'll be earning 6 figures. And so they paint a picture in the person's mind of an expanded self. Right? You're going to be a better self, and that then, yes, if I just do this course, then that's going to give me my route to the expanded self, and that's going to be great. Then I'll be happy. And that's the underlying assumption, isn't it? And of course, we know it's false. You're going to get there. You might have this, even if you achieve it using their technique, you're going to get there and you'll probably still have the dissatisfaction, the underlying dissatisfaction, because you go, I'm still seeking, I'm still searching, because I don't know who I am anymore. But then often from that point of view, that's what I said, the rajasic part might then be the necessary in order to then awaken to the true self. It was exactly my path. I had to do all of that for many years, 15 years, 20 years of really quite serious personal growth. I'm going to be a better self, expressed in my goal of trying to be a world champion, to realize eventually that wasn't going to work. I tried it, and I had to really go, okay, I'm on the wrong track here. This actually isn't going to work. It hasn't worked. I have to be honest with myself, brutally honest. And that then opened me up to the third lane, which was sattva, knowledge. Okay, so what is it actually really about? So if someone's got to go do that, then I don't knock it. I think that's their process. But there will come a point where that doesn't serve them anymore, and then they've got to go elsewhere.
Mm.
And that's where people, more spiritual teachers come in. They then say, okay, now you've done all of that. Now you're ready for the real deal of discovering who you are beyond the self-concept. Not trying to enhance your self-concept, make it a better self-concept. We're just trying to let go of your self-concept entirely, which is another level, isn't it? You won't get that at many personal. They won't tell you that at personal growth workshops and seminars, because that's post. That's another stage to really get to the core of who I am. I'm not my business. A lot of these things, let's say it's a business course, it's designed to attach you more to your business. Now you become more identified as a business owner and I'm success, and so your self-concept just evolves into maybe something even stronger because you're now very, very attached to that. And that's another block to the awareness of love's presence, because you've got a false identity going on. So it's a process, and you don't knock any part of it. If people are on that journey and they need to do it, then that's what they need to do. But you got to understand, it's a stage.
Yeah.
Stage 2 is not the ultimate. You need to go to sattva, knowledge, and that involves letting go. You must be willing to let it go. If you look at the see if this is here. There we go. If you look at this map of consciousness, what does it do? I don't know why it does that sometimes. I haven't quite figured that one out. Never mind. We'll go. It's shown quite well on this map of consciousness that at the higher levels, what precedes love and peace and joy is forgiveness. And that's beyond the optimism. So the ego will take you so far. You could argue maybe if you're in the second lane, rajas, it might take you to courage. Okay, yes, you have to have the courage to take on a new venture, do your thing. But kind of that's the top of it, isn't it? The optimism. Beyond that is a letting go. And often in order to transcend the optimism, you might have to have a major disappointment, in order that you have to then forgive. That will teach you forgiveness to raise you up to the next, as was the case with me. I was very optimistic, like no, I'm going to do this, I believe, and so that kind of got me to a point. And then to go higher spiritually, I had to have a major disappointment, which I had to forgive and let go of. And that then was the catalyst for moving into the higher reaches. So disappointment and obstacles are often absolutely necessary to then go to the next level. So it's all part of the process. It's again, that's the reinterpretation of the dream. It's not always meant to be good on the level of form. Actually the obstacles are necessary to awaken. So that's all part of it. And then you don't resist them. You go, okay, that's just part of the journey. And let me not interpret it as good or bad. It's all just part of the journey. It's all learning. Yeah. Things are going well. Well, that's showing me that the miracles work and I'm in flow, and that's all good. It's confirming that I'm on the right track. And if I get a challenge, then that's part of the journey. I need to let go of something. So, you just welcome it all in. Use it all as food for your spiritual awakening. Okay, so next paragraph.
This process of changing your mind at the fundamental level of desire is what Jeshua calls a miracle in A Course in Miracles. And this fundamental change of mind usually leads to miraculous effects on the level of behavior and form outcomes, because our beliefs create our perceptions or experience of reality in this world, and then these are reflected back to us through our perceptions that confirm to us that the beliefs are true. It's-
So projection, perception, that this is the mechanism. We project out from our subconscious. It creates a so-called reality for us. We then believe that that's true, and that reinforces the belief that projected it. And so we get caught up in an endless cycle of projection and perception, which, unless you break it with knowledge like this, saying, but projection makes perception, and the world you see is what you gave it. Unless you have someone telling you that, you'll just keep doing that forever in time. Which is why it takes us a long time to awaken, because that, we got caught up in that mechanism, and that seems to be reality. That seems to be how it works.
So when you say at the level of desire, it's the one desire of to awaken, really, or to So it's not desire for a new car or anything like that. It's
well, you could. That's an alternative. The ego desires are to foster the self-concept, to keep the game going. Okay, well, desire a new car or a house or a new partner or something on the level of form that's going to make you feel better in the future. So that's misuse of desire, craving something in the world to make you feel better, which is the source of all suffering, as the Buddha noticed. Or you can, the only true desire is, no, I want to know myself. I want to really wake up to who I am, and I want to escape. That's another way of framing that desire. I want to escape from the prison that I'm in, or I want to awaken to my true self. It's the same desire. Some people will be more like, my life's really terrible. I want to escape from this. Or some are more like, I just want to self-actualize and go beyond that, because I want to really discover who I am. I don't necessarily need the pain of it and the dysfunction to do that. So but either way, it's the same thing. Completely letting go of the ego and discovering who you are, one and the same thing. So whichever kind of way you want to take, again, the way of the cross is more suffering oriented. No, I just want to escape that. It's so dreadful. But that will take you to the same outcome as someone's like, well, actually life's okay, but I really want to know who I am, and to deeply have a deep desire to know who I really am and learn the truth about life.
Mm-hmm.
I took more the second part. I didn't have to suffer hugely. Fortunately, my life was reasonably okay. And I had my disappointments, but it wasn't like I was totally broken and depressed and suicidal before. It was just more like, I really want to know the truth now. I had a deep desire just to know the whole thing, because I'm curious. Like, I want to know the whole, and that, it doesn't matter which way you come to it. It's the same thing. I want to know the ultimate truth, and that becomes your only desire. And that's beyond all other desires. That's why he says in the course, your only function is salvation. You must give this primary importance, and everything else really doesn't matter. You realize nothing else really matters, because it's all part of the illusion. It doesn't mean you just don't do anything else. You still have some roles to play here, and you might have family and businesses and other obligations, and so you do those to the best of your ability, but you don't make them your primary function. You realize that's not what it's about. Those things are not per se going to make you happy. What's going to make you happy is knowing who you are, and then you bring who you are into those situations. And so it's an inside out. Then you, as a transformed self, the Christ, now shows up in those situations, and they change because you've changed. And that's how you then genuinely transform your life from the inside out. Transform your self-concept first. And this diagram shows it quite well. The integral model. We've looked at it, but I'm not sure I've ever actually included it in one of these emails, which I remedied today. So this is, if you're familiar with Ken Wilber, have you heard of him? Integral model. You may have. So a very bright man who did enormously well read. And in the early 90s, he'd already written a number of books, and was trying to figure out, like, well, how do you integrate all this into one model? There's many different models of psychology and developmental models and spiritual teachings, and how do you frame it all in one model that kind of is a model of models that explains the whole thing? And he went, I think, into retreat for 2 or 3 years, lived on his own, was also post his wife dying, so it was part of his healing process as well. And just worked this out. And when actually it's quite simple. It's a 4-quadrant diagram. On the one axis, you've got individual, and on the other, you've got collective. So those are dimensions of life. I have an individual sense of self. We're talking within the matrix here. So it's just to explain how life here in this world works. But ideally to point us beyond that. So, he does understand that this is a matrix, and a model is a model of an illusion. But the model can help you to transcend the illusion if it's a good model. So you have an individual sense of self. I have my individual ideas and beliefs and values and motivations, and also individual behavior. We'll have different things we're good at, and skills and talents, and whatever we've done, and that makes up our individual life. But we have to consider both aspects, the interior as well as the exterior dimension of the individual self. So I have an interior dimension, which is my values, my beliefs, my motivations, my priorities. That's all, I can't see that, but it all comes down to thoughts and emotions, and then the external world is how that gets manifested. So I have behavior. I behave in certain ways. I get performance outcomes, and that's based. What he's saying is it's primarily based on your individual intentions. So there's an integral connection between intentional and behavioral, and then the behavioral feeds back into the intentional. So now I get behavior that confirms that these values, priorities, motivations, and beliefs are true, and that reinforces it. And so that's the projection out there, perception feeding back into belief, and we keep cycling around. And any genuine transformation, you must go, well, this becomes primary. The intentional domain is the primary domain that I can work in. I don't seek to change here. I'm not just looking for behavioral change. That's a common thing in coaching. No, we want to get your behavioral change. No, what you want to do is change the person's mind primarily, fundamentally. And then the behavioral change will come as a result of that. It's the outcome. It's the tip of the iceberg, but it's not the primary objective, because otherwise you're making this primary. And that's the scientific materialist paradigm. You make this primary, and then this, at the extreme of that paradigm, the mind is denied. You don't even consider it.
Yeah.
At the base of it, the mind is a useful way to get the outcomes you want. Oh, okay, you can use your mind, law of attraction, visualize, manifest, all that stuff, but just to get the outcome that you want. So you're still really oriented to the external domain. Your primary orientation is external, and then you're giving this domain still primary importance, and the power then to affect your mind greatly. You can now be swayed by whatever happens. If you achieve your goal, great, I'm happy for. Oh, if I don't, then I'm very depressed. You see that at the extreme in the football, just totally attached to the outcome. And if we don't achieve the desired outcome, we're devastated. That's an extreme version of this, which can be useful to see demonstrated on the screen, because it's all your projection. You go, well, how do I do that? Get devastated when I don't win, I don't get the desired outcome, and wail and cry and gnash my teeth, literally. Is that empowered? Is that how I want to be? Or actually, could I be so in my true self that it didn't matter? The outcome wouldn't matter, whether I won or lost. It wouldn't matter, because I know that I played the best I could. And the whole point is to enjoy the game. So it's all designed, for our learning. And then on the collective dimension, you've got cultural. So, it's a collective groups, organizations, and society as a whole have a culture. It's a collective shared set of values, beliefs, purposes, priorities, everything internal, but on a collective level. We talk about a culture. There's a culture in a company, or culture in a country. What is that? It's a collective interior dimension, which then gets expressed in the systems that run that society or run that organization, which are collective patterns of behavior. So you see how it all fits together. And Ken Wilber was saying, unless you have an integral approach to life, if you only approach it through the external domains, or or only the internal. That's another, ultimately, that's a better approach. It's going to take you, if you just went in individual interior, you're going to become a mystic ultimately. You just leave the world aside, but you're not going to be very functional in the world. You've just, you've laid that aside. So I'd say A Course in Miracles is saying, well, understand this, that the interior is primary, but be able to work in the world and still engage in the external world, but now as a miracle worker, as someone who's awakened or awakening, and then you can actually help yourself and others in the world, and the behavioral domain changes because you've changed. So it's relevant to us, although it's not ultimate truth. The miracle operates on two levels. The miracle operates on it's a change in mind, in the intentional domain, but it also is reflected then in the external. And he uses the word miracle to refer to both aspects in the course without explaining it always. Sometimes it's referring to the external, something changes in the level of form, and sometimes it's more often it's about the internal shift. That's the true miracle. And he uses the term for both. So I guess that's why it took me 10 years to really understand what a miracle was, because I had to go study the integral model and to kind of go, okay, well, if I understand this framework, then it makes sense. The miracle operates in all four quadrants. And I can see its effects in all four quadrants. The miracle starts in the internal, individual interior. That's the only place it can start. One person changes their mind, and then they can be the catalyst for a change of mind, collectively. It often happens through one person, like a Yeshua coming into an awareness, and then he changes the whole culture, and now you have a collective culture we call Christianity, which then has created various systems that reflect that consciousness. And so the integral model is saying exactly what the quote says. The world is just a reflection of the interior domain, and if you see it as that, it's very useful. It can be a very useful pointer to then be able to see your values and your motivations and desires, and then change them if necessary.
Do you need, on the collective level, and clearly it would work much better if you've got the individuals with the same values, so you get the cross between the individual and the cultural, because presumably the values of the organization attract the individuals with the same values.
Ideally, it's all in sync. It's all harmonious and in flow. There's no conflict. Problems come when you get conflicts between these quadrants. So my behavior is out of alignment with my individual intentions. Massive internal conflict, and that doesn't work. There's no happiness there. You might try and fake behavioral change. Well, I need to do random acts of kindness, let's say, to be a kinder person. And you might try and fake that for a while, but underneath, actually, there's a lot of selfishness, self-investment. You don't really care about people, so that's not going to last, and there's going to be a dissonance. You need to resolve that dissonance, and so you could start with a behavior, like a desire to change the behavior, but you must then go and look at the internal beliefs that are going to support that. Otherwise, it's not going to be a sustainable change in behavior. You can't just do it on this level. I was once with a group. There's a WhatsApp group a lady started with good intentions. Said, no, it's all about random acts of kindness. So that's what the group's about, and we're going to talk about random acts of kindness, and you can post your random act of kindness for the day. And, great idea. But so then I'm okay. Well, they're obviously open to stuff. So I started posting stuff about meditation, and because I'm like, well, there's a meditation. That's my random act of kindness to everyone on the group. There's a meditation you can listen to, and it wasn't welcome because she was looking only at the external domain. The answer, no, we want to keep it very simple. It's only in the external. It's only the random act of kindness we want to focus on. But that's flatland. Because you're not going to get the answer. If it was simple as random acts of kindness and that would save the world would have been saved long ago. But we can't do random acts of kindness because there's all these blocks internally that stop us doing it. and stop it being a sustainable pattern of behavior for most people, because they can't do it. They feel like they're losing their sense of self, their self-concept, ego is threatened. So, they might go, nice idea, but they won't sustain it because it's not heartfelt. Because they have to really have deconstructed their separate self to quite a high degree to live in a really loving, kind way. You have to be awakening and getting rid of that separate self. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. So you see this flatland worldview all the time, and it doesn't work. It's not integral. It doesn't take into account these 4 dimensions of life in this world. And any idea behind the integral model is that any system, any model, anything you're trying to do should fit in the integral model. It should be integral. That you're not just trying to fix things on the level of form, which is the flatland worldview, because that doesn't work. It's got to take into account all 4 quadrants, and then it will be integral, and then it'll work much better. Which should be in alignment with what the course is saying. Go here, change your mind about the world first, and then the world will change. As a consequence of that, as a natural extension of that, you might be inspired to take action, but then it's inside out. You're not taking the action because you want the outcome. You're taking the action because you feel it's right to take the action, and you're inspired to do it. So very different ways of operating. The one way is, scientific materialist paradigm, ego-central. And we know that thought system because most of them were brought up in it. That's how Western society works. And then the other way is the way of flow. It's the way that masters like Yeshua, Buddha, and Lao Tzu talked about flow, Wu Wei, 2,500 years ago. It's that way of inside out. I connect with source, the Tao, and then I allow that to flow into my actions in this very spontaneous, not fearful, not controlling, just allowing this to come through. That's the way. Then that changes. It changes the outcomes, and you get often very miraculous outcomes happening because of that. And those are very desirable outcomes. The irony is actually you get much better results by doing this, but you can only do that if you've let go of your attachment to the outcome. You don't actually want the results anymore. It's not about that. It's a paradox, isn't it? So in order to perform really well at the World Cup, England would have had to have let go of all of their desire to win it. That's the paradox. No desire to win it, and they might have just won it easily because they're not desiring it anymore, and there's no fear and desire motivating them anymore. So they're now operating from the higher level of joy. If someone,
so in fact, they should be paid less, because when they've got so much hinging on it, because they've paid such enormous amounts of money, then perhaps the countries that pay less get a better outcome because there's not so much to lose.
Maybe. I don't think it's about I don't think at that level the money is a motivator for them. I think it's the desire to win for their country. I'm representing my country. There's millions of people relying on me, and I feel that pressure to deliver a result because I know everyone wants to win, and I know how happy it would make everyone. And worse, the flip side of that is I fear that I'll fail.
Yeah.
But I won't just fail myself, I'll fail the whole country. Oh, massive failure there. So huge fear. And now you're caught up in fear, desire, psychology that's on the lower end of the scale, as we can see here. Fear and desire sits at 100 and 125. It's not a very high vibrational energy. So if you're stuck in that, and then you see fear, desire, what happens? They lose, and they go plunging down into the lower depths, despair, blame, all of that kind of stuff. Which is why you see the absolute devastation when these players lose, because the ego takes them down into those lower areas, because it's got them nicely attached to the desires. And they might be feeling really positive when they're moving towards a goal of winning, and as soon as they lose, plunging down into grief, apathy, despair. And I can guarantee you all of those players, any team that's gone out, they would have had to process some of these quite deep emotions. Post that, there would have been a massive kind of letdown, come down, despair, I don't really want to do anything for it, and then hopefully they can move through it, pick themselves up again. But unless you really process it, they'll just repeat the same cycle. They'll pick themselves up to desire again. Okay, well, let's get on. Okay, now I'm going back in my club. Let's get on the winning track again. They haven't really resolved the problem, have they? It's still the self-concept playing itself out. So if they really went to it and really questioned the whole thing, then they could go to 350 and above, forgiveness. I really need to let go of the self-concept that was attached to all of that, that thinks I need to win in order to be happy. Why am I so attached to it? So to really coach them, you'd have to go to that level. You'd have to deconstruct the self-concept, which whether that's ever going to happen, I don't know. Might be going a bit far for them. But if you did, and you had a team that was really just playing in joy, no inhibitions. And if you ever watched Brazil play, when they were in their prime, I mean, you have to go back like 50 years, when Pelé they played with joy. You could see the joy. It was like just no inhibitions, no fear of failure. It wasn't about winning or losing. It was just the creative process of playing and doing amazing things with the football and playing as a team. And you could kind of feel that coming through. And they won 3 World Cups in the space of 12 years because of it. Because there was a very high vibrational frequency in that team. And they were playing, Pelé wrote a book, My Life in the Beautiful Game. It was not about the winning. It was about the joy of the game, which is a 540 frequency. So who can play if you're rooted in a lower frequency energy at 100 or 125, which a lot of teams are, or pride 175? How do you match a joy frequency? You can't. So you're gonna get beaten by it because it's a much higher frequency energy, and they don't get tired. Enjoy, you in flow. You don't get tired. You could carry on playing for maybe not forever, but for a long, long time before physical fatigue kicks in. You're like on another level, which is why I think Brazil won 3 times in 12 years, because they just were able to operate it, and there was held their kind of spiritual leader was Pelé. He captured the joy of the football, and I think took the whole team with him into that. So it's interesting because you take these teachings into any domain like sport, and you can get a whole lot of insight that you wouldn't get otherwise. And then it's like, so if I was the England coach, I'd say, okay, the way forward for this team is we've energetically got to shift. We can do all kinds of things, we can do all the training we like, but unless we shift it out of the fear desire domain, we'll keep getting the same kind of outcomes where we choke and we lose in the end, because that fear desire program, it requires you to lose eventually. You can't keep winning. The ego requires the negative. So whereas joy and love don't require negative. You could actually just carry on playing amazing football in the joy of it forever. This is not about the outcome. So yeah, interesting. Maybe I'll write a book on, what John was saying, write a book on sport, how this applies in sport, because it does, and it's actually immediately visible. You can see the outcome immediately. If a team is at a higher level frequency, you see them playing, you see the outcome immediately. You can see the way they're playing, and that'll be reflected in the score, almost certainly. So it makes it a good opportunity for spiritual teaching. Really, you can demonstrate these principles.
Be interested in that. I think you've just done a talk that's very, you bring a lot of people in.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do a podcast masterclass on that.
Yeah, I know who you could talk to.
Okay.
In fact, I think you already know him, John Campbell.
I do actually. Yeah. Was he a sportsman?
He's mad about football. I probably shouldn't talk about it on here, but yeah.
Yeah, he's a course student as well.
Oh, definitely. And sees football as his main forgiveness opportunity. So I could see that being a very good interview. I used to be part of his Course in Miracles group, and I've seen WhatsApp messages about between people about the World Cup.
Yeah.
A lot of interest in them.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, I think I probably lost his details and put us in touch. I met him years ago. 10 years ago or something, but I don't know if and that was in South Africa. So probably
Yeah,
a South African number. Is he in the UK or is he in South Africa or
he's actually in Spain now. He's just moved to Spain.
in
Well, in
Spain?
fact, he's been living in the Canary Islands for a few years, but now he's moved
Oh,
to the mainland.
okay, interesting. Yeah, well, if you've got his email,
Yeah.
or please put us in touch, because that could be a nice podcast conversation. Okay, so where are we? Let's go back to, I think we almost done with this. So quantum perspective, that's worth watching that. Bruce Lipton, really
Oh, yes.
how this all translates into the body. Very, another area which is fascinating to see the biology of belief. How does belief translate into what happens on a body level? And he's showing that it absolutely does. That's where medicine's going. So it's another area where there's that could be another talk. How does this apply in health and medical terms, and questioning the paradigm that it's all the genes. Saying no, what unlocks the genes is the beliefs. The biochemicals that are produced by the beliefs then unlock the genes, and they then allow genes to be changed. But it's the beliefs that do the unlocking. I remember, it's so clear. He said, yes, the genes are affected. He said what most biologists haven't focused on the last 50 years is there's an unlocking mechanism that unlocks the genes that then exposes them to the chemicals that change them. And what unlocks those genes is beliefs. It's the chemicals that are produced by the beliefs. So it's, again, selective perception. That 50% of the story is the genes, and then biologists focus on that, and they ignore the other 50% of the story, and they go, no, we're just going to ignore that because it doesn't fit our model, the scientific materialist paradigm. It doesn't fit into that, so we just ignore it. So it's selective perception. A lot of these theories are based on selective perception. Well, why did you choose that? Focus on the genes and ignore the biochemicals that are an integral part of the process, because it doesn't fit their model. So it's always worth questioning in any area of knowledge. You go, well, what are the beliefs and the assumptions that went into producing this theory? And you always find, if you track it back, there are a whole lot of assumptions that are not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
Because it's selective perception. So is that reality, or is it just what they wanted to see? And then you create a model according to what you want to believe, which Rupert Sheldrake argues is that's terrible science. That's not science. That's dogma. That's nothing different from religion. You decide what you want to believe, and then you fit the evidence to meet it. And anything that goes against your belief, you discard. That's not the scientific model at all.
Yeah.
So they're not following their own so-called scientific process, which is, well, let's be objective. Again, can you really be objective? Because the ego comes in. But let's be open. You look at the outcomes, and then you match the theory. You find a theory that matches the outcomes that the experiments are giving you. You don't go, we decide in advance what the theory is, and then we match the experiment, the evidence to it, and discard the evidence we don't want. That's not good science at all. So that's
I am told by people involved in drug trials. How do drug trials take place?
Yeah, but that so it's perceptual. What he's saying is you can't, and quantum mechanics confirms it, you can't remove the observer from the whole thing. Scientists say, oh, well, that's science and that's fact. It's a load of nonsense, because in quantum mechanics, it's very clearly shown that the observer is an integral part of the experiment. You cannot remove them from it. The observer is integral to it. So the observer's intentions then become primary. Well, what are your intentions? So it takes you back to the integral model. Well, it comes down to intentions. Quantum mechanics has shown this so clearly and proved it. And yet still we have this very primitive, backward scientific materialist paradigm based on Newtonian physics that everyone seems to be attached to and says, no, that's the truth, even though the evidence really doesn't support it at all. Possibly, in Newton's era, you could say that was the new frontier. It was like, oh, yeah, so it was all exciting. But now it's all old hat. It's 300, 400 years old. And there's so much evidence that isn't the case. And that isn't the way the universe really works. And yet we still cling to it because that's the way we've always done it. and various agendas and interests are supported by that. And the ego is supported by it because the ego wants you to believe you are actually a body, and there is another world, and an objective world out there, and you are a victim of that world because it's independent to you. That's what it wants to believe, doesn't it? So the Newtonian physics really plays into that totally. There's no accident that Newtonian physics is the dominant paradigm, because the ego is in charge of the world. The ego, it's the ego's world, and so it's going to create a paradigm that supports it. Okay, so any thoughts, comments, questions on any of that? It's a little review of some of the theory. We've looked at it already, but I think it's interesting. You look at the different ways and different angles on it, and hopefully that you start to understand it more deeply. That's why I do these teachings. It's like, okay, I really start to get it. The more I work with it, the more I get it, and it starts to become just, yes, I know this, rather than a belief system. I know this to be true. So by default, I apply it in my life to help me to let go and do the forgiveness I need to do. Okay, so
I suppose thinking back to what you're saying about Ramana Maharshi and coming to the realization that there was no self, and it was just beliefs, collection of beliefs. So when we elect to incarnate here, are we saying, right, well, we'll take all those beliefs from all those lifetimes? I mean, is that how it works? I suppose none of us really know, but
I think it's let's have a look at the timeline, because I put it in here. What causes you to reincarnate? It's the accumulated egoic energy, which is psychological and emotional attachment. That's what karma is. So that's accumulated. You haven't dealt with all of that, and that accumulated psychological and emotional energy, attachment to this world, is what causes you to come back. You have a self-concept that's bound up in that says, I need to experience the effects of this energy. Where do you experience the effects of that energy? You come to Earth and you have a lifetime, and you have a human life where these patterns play out in the physical, and then you get to experience it all. So the ego's only purpose for it is to make you suffer more for your apparent sin of destroying oneness. So that's its script, guilt and sin and fear, and you've got to come here to suffer for that. But in the experience of it, you get the opportunity to reinterpret it. Say, well, maybe it's not about guilt and fear and suffering. I'm only that's not the ultimate purpose. I'm only here to learn to transcend that, to learn to let go of this accumulated psychological and emotional attachment over many lifetimes, which is my karma, and that's my ego. And my only purpose is to let go of that and then interpret all of these experiences from that perspective. Yeah, I'm just here to learn how to let it go or forgive it, so that I can ultimately transcend the need for it. I don't need to come back and have another life if I've let go of all the ego, psychological, and emotional attachment. Why would I come and do this anymore?
So if you let go of all outcomes, all emotions, unhelpful thoughts and beliefs, you've done it, you've cleared your karma.
Yeah. Nothing triggers you anymore. So that you get, the way to know is, are you still getting triggered? Do you still have things that cause negative thoughts and emotions in you? Well, if you have, then you haven't cleared the karma, because there's still a psychological and emotional attachment to that self-concept. So that's how we know. The level of your reaction to something will tell you, well, how detached am I really? How free am I? If I'm still being triggered and those emotions are strong, I know, okay, there's still quite a lot there. I've got to clear.
Yeah.
So there's work to do. I've got to clear that. If I truly want to be free, when I die, which is just the body, being laid aside, and your mind becomes incorporeal, So no one really dies. But if your mind isn't corrected and healed, then you're not back in perfect love or pure formless awareness. You still have all those ego, psychological, and emotional attachments going on, and so you're not in there. You've bypassed it. And as we said, Sue and John are talking about a ghost that was in their house. People can get waylaid for centuries just because they got lost. They're lost in a thought. There was no letting go, and so they're not in pure formless awareness. They're just disembodied, but still very much in their ego and trying to find some kind of resolution, still within that very stuck thought system, and they're going nowhere. They're just hanging around a place because that's what they're familiar with, not actually probably knowing what they are. And maybe they still think they're humans, so they're still trying to somehow live there, but they're not, and they haven't realized it. So it's just confusion. If you haven't done the spiritual work, you just die and you're confused. And when you're confused, you'll come back.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and have to repeat it until there's no more confusion, until you really understand what's happening, who you are truly, because that helps you to see who you're not. You must get to who you truly are through discovering who you're not. That's how it works. Realizing that all of this is false deeply will awaken you to the truth of who you are. That's how it works. So Yesha's approach is saying, well, let's really look at all this stuff, the red stuff, red arrows, red timeline, and perceive it differently from the blue. So that's the Holy Spirit coming and looking at the illusions differently and reinterpreting it, because that's how you'll awaken. By really understanding what this is, you'll understand who you really are. Because this becomes then the alternative. You go, no, I don't want this. I see it for what it is. I don't want it. So then what's left is pure formless awareness, once you've let all of this go. Does that make sense about the ego and karma? It's not rocket science. It's just, you've got stuck energy. You've got a self-concept with all this stuck energy, psychological, emotional attachment. And that's got to play itself out. It's got to express somehow. If you haven't let it go, it's still in your mind, it's got to express, and it needs to express then in the physical. That causes you to come back and have a life, so that all of these dramas can happen, so that you can experience it. Because the mind must experience what it's believing in. That's a fundamental law. So you have to correct your beliefs and say, well, I only believe in this. There's no resident belief or desire for any of this. I realize this is a complete delusion. It has no meaning at all.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do here with this mind training.
Yeah.
So finally, when you finally lay your body aside, there's nothing left here. There's no psychological, emotional attachment. You're really not bothered by any of it. And you would be resting. Your mind would be in this state of mind, even while you're in the body. You just in this enlightened, peaceful, calm state. Nothing phases you, because you're rooted in this awareness already. So as Ramana said when he was dying, he said, where am I going? Why are you sad? I'm going nowhere. I'm already there. I'm already in moksha. I'm already in a connection with my true self, and in a state of bliss. So it's just the physical form, which isn't me. It's just that's just now disappearing. But who I really am is unaffected. But they hadn't quite got to his level yet, so they're still identified with the form. Ramana is the form of Ramana, and he's in the world, so we can talk to him. And we need his presence because they hadn't connected with themselves. They need to still see it in a guru. If they really connected with themselves, they're like, well, I'm one with Ramana in my mind 24/7. I am that self. I'm the same as him. So of course I'm connected. I am him. I can't be disconnected if I am him. Which is why he asked the question, have you learned nothing from my teachings? Because it's like he's just taught them that only this is true. Only the one self is true and nothing else is true. And yet they're still attaching to the body and giving it a meaning that it doesn't have. So all of our experiences are just designed from the Holy Spirit's perspective to take us back here. If you can reinterpret them and it can take you back into your true awareness, then you're using them for what they're really for. To help you to let go and find your true self while you seemingly in time. And if you don't do this process, then the only alternative is you stay very stuck on the timeline, believing in the story and the character and all the emotions that go around it. And the ego just wants to make that red arrow massive and root you down onto the timeline and make you forget entirely that there's something else, that there is actually another way of looking at it. Okay, shall we have a look at the list now? We're at 5 o'clock. Okay, are you going to stay with us a bit more, Sunny? Or?
Oh, I'm going to go now. I'll leave you with Jackie.
Yeah, Jackie.
Time tomorrow are you planning?
Yeah, tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Thursday.
I think that's going to be 5:30. That one, wasn't it?
I'm happy to do an evening. Yeah. You want to do an evening?
No, I've got 5 o'clock clients, so I can't do it in the evening.
Okay.
I can do it.
12:30.
I can do 12:30.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't have to plan your life around me.
Well, at the moment the two of you are joining, so it's like that's going up. So
5 o'clock, so you need to be finished by what time? 4:30. So how we did 2:30 or 2 o'clock?
Yeah.
Which one do you prefer?
Yeah, I don't mind.
How about we do after lunch? So we do 2:30.
yeah. Okay. Can't you do 12:30?
No, I can't. I'm under a lot of pressure to get stuff done. It's not happening. I'm running out of time.
No, I don't mind. 2:30. We can do 2:30 tomorrow for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So right now, do you want to have a look at the teaching? What is the last judgment? How much time do you have?
Not very long. Another half an hour.
Okay.
What is the last judgment? Have we done that? We've done
Yeah,
that.
we read it. We read it yesterday.
Yeah. What about doing the lesson?
Do the lesson, okay, and a meditation then.
I'll just do the lesson. That would be fine. Sorry, I have to go and get on with this. I need to actually, make a call before 6. Okay.
So there's the lesson for today. I see all things as I would have them be.
I see all things as I would have them be. Alternatively, I perceive everything as I want it to be.
Okay, we'll read perception follows judgment.
Perception follows judgment. Having judged, we therefore see what we would look upon. For sight can merely serve to offer us what we would have. It is impossible to overlook what we would see and fail to see that we have chosen what we have chosen to behold. How surely, therefore, must the real world come to greet the holy sight of anyone who takes the Holy Spirit's purpose as his goal for seeing, and he cannot fail to look upon what Christ would have him see and share Christ's love for what he looks upon. Alternatively, perception follows judgment. Having judged, we therefore perceive what we choose to perceive. The perception can merely serve to offer us what we want to have. It is impossible to overlook what we choose to perceive and fail to perceive what we have chosen to make real. How surely, therefore, must the real world come to greet the wholly aware perception of anyone who takes the remembrance of perfect love's purpose as his goal for perceiving. And we cannot fail to perceive that our true self wants us to perceive and share this self's love for what it perceives.
Okay, thoughts on that?
Saying, we have a choice of what we perceive. We can choose to judge and see things as wrong and not as our ego believes they should be, or we can choose to see the perfection and accept that there's perfection in everything, and connect with the Holy Spirit and the remembrance of perfect love. And as the more we do that, the more we're going to see what our true self wants us to perceive, and share the Holy Spirit's view of the world, the real world, the correctly perceived world.
So it comes down to desire again. You must desire only the one self. You desire only love, and then your perception changes accordingly.
Yeah.
You see what you choose to see, even if the the apparently external world shows you the opposite. That's the illusion. But you must choose to see only love.
Yeah.
Underneath it all, which is a complete reversal of the ego's thought system.
Yeah.
In that choice, and it goes completely in the face of what the world believes. So of course it's going to be difficult, because we're so used to believing in the ego's default version of the world that's really rather unpleasant: pain, suffering, sickness, death, really an unloving world. That's the perception of the ego.
Yeah.
Because it's denied love. So of course it can only perceive an unloving world if it's denied the love that's actually reality. So now to correct it, we must deny the projection of it. Deny projection, and you deny the self-concept that's projecting it. It's logical, isn't it? That's the only way you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And then what's left when you've denied the illusion must be the truth. There's nothing left after that. So then your pure formless awareness of perfect love is restored, because you've denied everything else. So you chipped away, the sculptor. You've just chipped away, taken all the rough edges off, and then what remains is perfection.
Yeah.
The blank canvas, to use another art analogy, it's a blank canvas. So remove all the paint that paints on it, and you've got a blank canvas, perfectly pristine white. And that's pure formless awareness. There's no form in it. So actually the greatest painting would be one where there's nothing on it. just the
Well, it makes it feel a bit boring, to be honest. I mean,
that's what the ego will say, but it, that's symbolic. I mean, wouldn't that be an interesting painting? You went into a gallery and you saw a painting which just had the white space, frame, white space, pure white, nothing else. I mean, that's in itself is a statement, isn't it? Saying, well, actually, that's a symbol of true reality.
But a lot of people say they connect with God through art or music, because it takes you out of yourself to something greater and inspired. And a lot of the greatest artists and composers say it wasn't them, it was something coming through them.
Yeah, it's a symbol, like in anything else. Words, images, it's all symbols, which can be interpreted and inspired by the Holy Spirit. It's possible. So a lot of these kinds of creative people are they tapping in, they're downloading, and they're allowing it to come through them. And then they're speaking in a language to people, in a language they can understand.
Yeah.
Pure formless awareness has no language, so very difficult to communicate if you don't have some kind of symbol, whether that's words or images, to communicate with.
Yeah.
So it's the way the spirit, if you're in the world but not of it, you need language to communicate a message, otherwise it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And just pure formless awareness in and of itself, with no form, that's it's something you can only really experience directly. It's in your own experience. While we're here, we're working with perception and symbols and language, to ultimately make us ready for that experience of pure formless awareness. the meantime, we use the symbols guided by the Holy Spirit to, help us stand and awaken. Okay, so thoughts on number 1, paragraph 1? Any other
No, I don't think there's anything else.
question?
Yeah. I can do the next one.
Yeah.
I have no purpose for today except to look upon a liberated world, set free from all the judgments I have made. Father, this is your will for me today, and therefore it must be my goal as well. I have no purpose for today except to perceive a liberated world, set free from all the judgments I have made. My source, this is what your awareness offers me today. Therefore, it must be my awareness and purpose as well. Yeah.
Okay. I was barking on the truth of that. So world gets changed to awareness, which we did, I think, yesterday as well.
Yeah.
What your awareness offers me, because that's all it is. It's an awareness that then you allow to come into your own awareness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that awareness must be your awareness as well.
Yeah. So the lack of judgment is, or releasing of all judgments is the forgiveness and letting go, isn't it? So that is what frees the world.
Yeah, that frees your mind into this higher awareness with a capital A.
Yeah.
Periods that, and if that's your awareness, then you are one with God. You're one with your source. That awareness is your source. So
Yeah.
become your awareness. So yeah, very simple. Very simple. Just one awareness, and that's your awareness, and there's nothing else. The the only problem is that we don't believe that yet. We've got another awareness knocking around, and it's giving us all these false perceptions and interpretations of reality that really mean nothing. That just cover over the true awareness. That's the only purpose.
Yeah. Yep. Makes sense.
No. It's very, very simple. But to do it, you have to then let go of everything. You can't hang on to one belief in this world, because that roots you into another awareness. Have something else going other than pure awareness. And there's the extent of that. You go, wow, that's a big ask, seemingly. To not be triggered by anything, to not judge, name, label, complain, do any of those things the ego loves to do. Not do any of it in response to anything that's happening.
Yeah.
You or just generally in the world. That's the enlightened state.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's a rare state of mind. There's not many people who are able to sustain that.
Yeah. That's the work, isn't it?
Ongoing, moment by moment. Can you stay rooted in this higher awareness? Because that's what you are. So it must be what you are now.
Yeah.
And yet still live your life. You're rooted in it, you connected with it, but you're still able to function in this world. That's the art of it. That's the art of letting go.
Yeah. Right.
Isn't easy, but with practice we can all learn it. It's possible.
Yeah.
To learn this, I want to call the one essential skill, which is letting go. You've got to let go, but you've got to let go in a way that doesn't completely destroy your worldly life.
Yeah.
So okay, well, I just let it all go, and I don't attend to my worldly responsibilities and stuff, and then it all kind of falls apart. I just drop out of life. I mean, that is an approach. The people who've done it, often they become homeless, or they go to India or something else. I really don't care about any of it. So can you still maintain some level of form life, but without any attachment to it? And you still do what you need to do on the level of form without attachment to it, without making it into anything that makes you happy or sad or anything. You just do it. Whatever you need to do, you do in a state of calm, peaceful acceptance.
Yeah.
That's really where we want to get to with this course. And then maybe beyond that, in your final time on earth, maybe for the last few years, if you're older, you might get to a point where you can just really surrender. There's no need to really do very much because you're retired. The need for doing is very limited, so you can just rest more in being.
Doesn't look like I'm going to be retiring anytime soon.
Well, I'm not sure the concept's really meaningful to me. It's retire from what? It's like if you're inspired, the Spirit's with you, then you just you can't retire from doing God's will. You just be guided, whatever you need to do. If that guidance says just be quiet and still and don't do much and just meditate, well then I guess you would just be following its guidance.
Yeah.
But if it says go out into the world and teach the message and do whatever, organize workshops or do one-on-one sessions, or because that's how this expresses, then you need to listen to that. Not my will, but thy will be done. Some of the most profound words ever said. Okay. So, any thoughts on the lesson? It's kind of similar to yesterday's one. Instead of I judge everything as I want it to be, I perceive everything as I want it to be.
Yeah.
So just taking it into maybe a bit bigger judgment, we tend to think of something negative, but I perceive everything as I want it to be. All of my perceptions come from what I want it to be, what I want to be. I perceive everything as I want to be. That's a good translation, actually.
Yeah.
Perceive everything as I want to be.
Yeah.
The reflection of my self-concept.
Yeah.
So as I want it to be, as I want to be. So our desires, are the reflection of our self-concept. So that's why the Buddha noticed, well, if you let go of desire, you'll let go of your self-concept. You'll go to nirvana, pure formless awareness.
Yeah. Yes.
Because what's behind the desire is the self-concept. It's blocking that awareness. Yeah, so it's very simple, but it's just doing it. Practice, practice, practice. You look at it and every day. Just hopefully get more. The value of doing this theory is that you get more determined. You go, the more I do this, the more I understand there is no other way. I've looked at it so many times in so many different ways, and it starts to make complete sense. You go, yeah, that theory makes absolute sense. It resonates with me. It reconciles with my perceptions of life, as how things actually work here. It's a good theory, so therefore it must be true. So therefore, let me listen to this and only listen to this. That this theory is correct. Therefore, forgiveness is always justified. If I don't believe in the metaphysics, then something else will be justified. I'll try and find another way to live my life.
Yeah.
Which is why it's important to go over it and over it and over it, because he knows just how addicted your mind is to what's false.
Yeah.
He's got to teach you that through this that it is false.
Yeah.
If you know it's false, then you can let it go. Okay, so do you want to do a quick meditation, or
I won't, John. Actually,
Mm.
need to
Okay.
get going. So, thank you. That was another very interesting session. Inspiring as always. So, be back tomorrow at 2:30.
Yeah. Practice well and have a good evening. And you're watching the football, then do some mind watching.
Is it football again? I haven't watched anything, quite frankly.
It's a semi-final. But if you tune in right at the end of the game, that's where you see the dramatics.
Yes.
You won't lose. So you can skip the whole thing and you tune in right at the end and you see the emotions. The one team is like, it's so extreme, because the one team is, over the moon celebrating, and the others are down and out on the floor.
Yeah.
And one set of fans is going crazy, and the other fans are like, oh my God, we're just so depressed in our lives over. The contrast of emotions is extraordinary.
It's extraordinary. I don't get it. I find it all a bit well, triggering actually. Why am I triggered by it? It's to do with losing, I suppose. I've got some stuff to work around.
Well, that's why it's
Losing.
good mind watching, because you watch all these intense emotions and like, can you just be the objective observer, really not bothered, or does it bring up stuff in you as you watch the, you know, the winner? It's a winners and losers. You know, that's the ego's story, isn't it?
I don't like to see anyone lose, even if I'm not affected. I think that's. I don't like to see other people's negative emotions. I used to do some work around that. I used to have a look at that. So who's playing?
It's Morocco against France.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, apart from, you know, the team, it doesn't really matter who's playing, but just watch the, you know, watch the emotion, and it's extraordinary what, you know, what happens. And so then you see right there, you know, that's the ego's psychological attachment right there. You know, like as I watched the England game, and it was like, you know, there's, I suppose, a little desire, you know, it'd be great if they win, they're doing really well. But then you notice how that creates suffering, because as long as there's a desire for an expectation for an outcome, you can be disappointed. You go in with that desire, which every fan does. They want their team to win. And the more attached they are to the winning, the more potentially disappointed they're going to be, and the more they're going to suffer, potentially. And so that it sets them up for suffering, the expectation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you can observe all of that and just go, okay, but how is that playing out in me? And can I clear my mind of that? Because clearly that is not a sustainable way to be happy.
Yeah.
You can't rely on a football team to bring you happiness. It's a disaster, because they can win and they can lose. And yet, yes, for some people, they live through these teams. They're so invested in it. And you see the absolute ecstatic joy if they score a goal or they win. Apparently in Argentina, because Argentina won last night, they partied the whole night. The entire country parties the whole night, and they haven't even won the whole thing.
Yeah.
That was just the semi-final. They're in the final now. So imagine, you know, the party if they win, but imagine the disappointment if they lose.
Yeah.
Because so much attachment and investment in it. That, you know, it's either going to be elation or disappointment, depending on whether a football is kicked into a goal or not. It's bizarre. I mean, do you think of it, the quantum? I mean, just like, so it can come down to one kick. You know, did the football end up in the back of the net or not, in a penalty or something, or in the whole game? You know, they kicked the football into the net twice and you only did it once. And that now determines the emotional state of an entire nation.
For weeks.
For weeks. Bizarre.
Yeah.
You couldn't make this stuff up.
No.
But, you know, that's the ego's crazy land.
I think you've definitely got a book in this, Johnny.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's your specialist area as well, having, you know, played sport at a high level.
Yeah. I mean, I never played international level, but, you know, I was reasonably good. And I definitely went through the journey of being attached to the outcome and seeing how that worked. And then I was able to let go of, you know, the outcome orientation and needing to win. And that was a game changer for me. It absolutely changed the, you know, the nature of my whole experience with the sport, because I was no longer outcome oriented, and I played much better because of it.
Yeah.
And then I started to understand flow, and you know, it was a big part of my spiritual journey of awakening, was going through that experience and understanding, and the disappointment, huge disappointment when your egoic dream related to sport is not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there was a huge awakening as a result of it. So yeah, could bring in a lot of these principles, and maybe help people who go that route, because there are many people who do sport and they take it seriously. They're professionals, or they make it part of their self-concept, to get them to understand that, you know, you don't want to do that. Just enjoy the sport for the sake of you playing it, because you enjoy the activity. It's a, you know, it's an expression of joy and flow coming through you, and that feels very enjoyable. But as soon as a self-concept gets involved, it ruins it.
Yes.
You can't really enjoy it anymore.
Yeah.
Your it now becomes win-lose, and
Yeah.
enjoys the fear of losing. So then your
Yes.
self-concept ruins the enjoyment of the process of it. You know, why did we invent games where someone has to win and someone has to lose? Why couldn't we just play? Interesting, isn't it? Why
Yeah.
couldn't we just play the game without having to score? Why
Yeah.
couldn't they just play football and go, okay, you know, the goal is to get it in the back of the net. I guess you need a goal for it, you know, but actually it doesn't really matter what the score is. We just
Well,
enjoy the game.
it's interesting that you say that, because Sally and I both trained to facilitate a game called the transformation game. I don't even know that. It's a Findhorn.
I know of it.
And,
I haven't
and
played.
there's no, at first I thought this is a bit strange. There's no game to it. There's no competition. You're playing your own game.
Yes.
So
So there's a difference between an infinite game and a finite game. Listen to Simon Sinek. He's really good on it. An infinite game is one where there's no finite outcome.
Yeah.
The game goes on. You know, it's a transformation game. Well, there's no finite outcome. There's no winner or loser.
No,
How
I mean,
can you
there's
really win or lose at life? It's a crazy idea. I won at life. Well, life continues. It's infinite. It goes on.
there's learning. I mean, the whole idea of it is that there's learning. So the game produces the learning, and that's how it should be, I suppose. And maybe the learning in the football is only because, or can be because, there is a loser, and it's all the learning about attachment.
Yeah, well, it's perfect in its imperfection. Great opportunity to really, you know, learn who you are and who you're not through the game. But if you stay rooted in the outcome orientation, it was all about winning on the level of form, and I'm a winner if I win the World Cup, and I'm a loser if I don't, then you've missed the point.
Yeah.
You know, it's about teaching those players and the spectators who they are and who they're not. The highest level. That's because that's the purpose of everything. But it's to interpret it in that way, get people to see that is it's a major awakening, you know, through just perceiving it differently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there may well be a you know, a value in writing a book that then maybe a lot of people read because it's sport, and you know, they like sport, and they're like, you know, like, why did Harry Kane miss the penalty?
I think it's definitely a book in that. And you know, it's always, I mean, are you still recording? Yeah, I was just thinking about the course I did, which is, you know, the Psych K course, which Bruce Limpton's very involved with that, or with the originator of Psych K. And they very much say, you know, if you're going to be a facilitator, focus on, you know, you're better off focusing on the area that is your area of specialism. So, for example, one of the guys on the course, he's a singer, and so he's focusing on helping people to use this process to help people overcome stage fright. Other people have got other things, you know, maybe a child with ADHD or something, and they're using that.
Yeah, exactly. So that becomes your special function.
Yeah.
Your special function, which is how this then plays out in form for you. You know, your special function will be unique to you. It depends on your life situation, your journey, skills, abilities, talents, all of that bound up, and then it's unique to you.
Yeah.
I mean, someone else might have something similar, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So that you know, the Holy Spirit can give you a special function and use the idea of specialness to awaken you, if you allow it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because you know, everyone's looking for their purpose, but if you're looking from the special self, trying to make your self concept, you know, enhanced through that, then you know, it's delusional.
Yeah.
But if you allow the Holy Spirit to use whatever the ego's made for its purposes, then that's your special function or your purpose, which will inspire you, because that's what you were born. You know, that's your destiny in this life, is to use your experiences in that way to transcend your special self.
Yeah.
Others too, and that feels inspiring because it's how your journey is meant to unfold. Your journey of awakening is meant to unfold through whatever that, you know, that special thing was, whether it's football or, you know, we all have special interests, don't we? That's part of the human story.
Yeah.
Different interests, and so then you use your particular, preference, specialness, which maybe you were attached to, but you then use that for your transformational journey. You use it to awaken.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
the principle.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Holy Spirit's reinterpreted it, and it's not hurting you, it's serving you. And anyone who really is finding their higher purpose has done that. Usually it's their culmination of their whole journey, and they found a way to really interpret all of that specialness and change it into something that's holy, that actually is confirming to them and teaching others that they are the Christ, they are the one self, through that, whatever that special thing is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where you find your higher purpose. And then there's an alignment with the Spirit. The Spirit is now directing you, and you can have an extraordinary life. It can be amazing. That fulfilling that purpose can give you a very expanded, fulfilling life, but you're not doing it through the ego. You're doing it as a surrendered person who's saying, well, just use me.
Yeah.
Everything that I've done and everything I've learned, use that for your purposes. And then it's authentic, and you can feel if someone's coming from that place. You can absolutely feel if it's like really genuine. That's, you could call it passion, but it's not the ego's passion to be better and the desire to be a special self. It's a deeper inspiration, maybe would be a better word. It's an inspiration coming from the Spirit, saying, okay, now the Spirit of life itself is directing all of your efforts in this channeled way, and that's that becomes your special function, and that's part of your plan, part of playing your part in the plan of at one is expressing this. So we're all there to find it.
Yeah.
Something for everyone, I believe. Everyone can find it, and allow this the truth to express through them.
Yeah.
By a purpose, and you come alive when that happens. You have energy, and things just it's amazing. Things just flow, and you might still have challenges, but there's something else. It's not the egoic grind of, well, I'm just trying to get the outcome. It's an inside out. I'm inspired to do it because it feels deeply meaningful, and I'm doing actually what I love doing. And then the outcome follows accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. John, I'm going to have to go, so I've got to go make this phone call. So
okay,
thank you again.
Jackie again. All right.
And
see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Lovely. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Namaste. Okay, so it brings us to the end of the session. I'm just going to read very quickly. This will need much translation. Let's just read. So I'm just going to quickly read to you the final section of the Manual for Teachers, which is section 29. As for the rest, it's entitled. And I'll just translate as we go some of the terms. So this manual, says Yeshua, is not intended to answer all questions that both teacher and pupil may raise. In fact, it covers only a few of the more obvious ones. In terms of a brief summary of some of the major concepts in the text and workbook. It's not a substitute for either, but merely a supplement. While it is called a manual for teachers, it must be remembered that only time divides teacher and pupil, so that the difference is temporary by definition. In some cases, it may be helpful for the pupil to read the manual first. Others might do better to begin with the workbook. Still others may need to start with the more abstract level of the text, which is for which, who would profit more from prayers alone? Who needs but a smile, being as yet unready for more? No one should attempt to answer these questions alone. Surely no teacher of God or perfect love has come this far without realizing that. The curriculum is highly individualized, and all aspects are under the Holy Spirit's particular care and guidance. So we're going to be guided, we're going to be shown what to do by this remembrance of perfect love in our minds. So ask and it will answer. Responsibility is the Holy Spirit's, this remembrance of perfect love, and it alone is fit to assume it. To do so is its function. To refer the questions to it is yours. Would you want to be responsible for decisions about which you understand so little? So really, yes, you're saying we're clueless. So how can we take responsibility when we have no idea who we are? So instead, be glad you have a teacher who cannot make a mistake. His answers are always right. Would you say that of yours? So we can't go wrong if we listen to our right mind. We can really tap into the guidance of this presence. It's just a remembrance of this perfect love, remembrance of who we really are. So there's another advantage, says Yeshua, and a very important one, in referring decisions to the Holy Spirit, or the remembrance of perfect love, with increasing frequency. Perhaps you've not thought of this aspect, but its centrality is obvious. To follow the Holy Spirit's guidance is to let yourself be absolved of guilt. It is the essence of the at-one-ment. It is the core of the curriculum. Imagined usurping of functions not your own is the basis of fear. The whole world you see reflects the illusion that you have done so, making fear inevitable. To return the function to the one to whom it belongs is thus escape from fear. And it is this that lets the memory of love return to you. Do not then think that following the Holy Spirit's guidance is necessary merely because of your own inadequacies. It is the way out of hell for you. Hell is victimhood. Way of victimhood of a special self and all of its unfortunate consequences like sickness and suffering and pain and death. So here again is the paradox often referred to in the Course. To say of myself I can do nothing is to gain all power. And yet it is but a seeming paradox. Has God or perfect love created or extended you, you have all power. And in that pure formless awareness, you have all power. Image you made of yourself has none. So this self-concept, which is an image and then that's projected into an image of the body in a world, none of this has any power because it's all false. So the Holy Spirit, remembrance of perfect love, knows the truth about you. The image you made does not. Yet, despite its obvious and complete ignorance, this image assumes it knows all things, because you have given that belief to it. Such is your teaching, and the teaching of the world that was made to uphold it. The teacher who knows the truth has not forgotten it. His decisions bring benefit to all, being wholly devoid of attack, and therefore incapable of arousing guilt. So we can completely let go of ego's thought system through the Holy Spirit. Who assumes a power that he does not possess is deceiving himself. That to accept the power given him by God, perfect love, is but to acknowledge his creator, his source, and accept his gifts. And its gifts have no limit. To ask the Holy Spirit, in remembrance of perfect love, to decide for you is simply to accept your true inheritance. Does this mean that you cannot say anything without consulting him? No, indeed. That would hardly be practical. And is the practical of which this course is most concerned. If you've made it a habit to ask for help, when and where you can be confident that wisdom will be given you when you need it. Prepare for this each morning. Remember God when you can throughout the day. Ask the Holy Spirit's help when it's feasible to do so. And thank it for its guidance at night. And your confidence will be well-founded indeed. So it's giving us a little bit of guidance on how we should just live our lives going forward. Basically, give everything to the Holy Spirit, ask for guidance when you need it, and never forget that the Holy Spirit, or remembrance of perfect love, does not depend on your words. He or it understands the requests of your heart and answers them. Does this mean that while attack remains attractive to you, you will respond with evil? Hardly. God, pure formless awareness of perfect love, has given him it power to translate your prayers of the heart into his language. His presence, pure formless awareness of perfect love, understands that an attack is a call for help, and it responds with help accordingly. God, perfect love, would be cruel. It let your words replace its own. A loving father does not let his child harm himself or choose his own destruction. He may ask for injury, but his father will still protect him. How much more than this does your Father, capital F, source, love his son, love its extension? So remember, you are his completion, its completion, and its love. Remember, your weakness is its strength. But do not read this hastily or wrongly. If its strength is in you, what you perceive as your weakness is but illusion. It is giving you the means to prove it so. Ask all things of this teacher, and all things are given you. Not in the future, but immediately, now. God, perfect love, does not wait. For waiting implies time, and it is timeless. Forget your foolish images, your sense of frailty, and your fear of harm, your dreams of danger and selected wrongs. God, perfect love, God, or pure formless awareness of perfect love, knows but his Son, knows only its extension. And as it was created or extended, so he is, so it is. In confidence, I place you in his hands, in its hands. In confidence, says Yeshua, I place you in his hands, its presence, loving awareness. And I give thanks for you that this is so. And then we'll finish with a prayer. So just close your eyes if you're listening to this. Take a nice deep breath in. Say to yourself, and now, in all your doings be you blessed. And now in all my doings I am blessed. God, pure formless awareness of perfect love, turns to you for help to save or free the world, awaken the world. His presence wants you to awaken the world. Teacher of perfect love. Teacher of God, teacher of perfect love. It's thanks, love's thanks it offers you. So, for the world, stand silent in the grace you bring from Him, from it, this loving presence. You are the son or extension that He loves. Extension loves its source, and the source loves its extension. And it is given you to be the means through which you are the son or extension His presence loves, and it's given you to be the means through which its voice is heard around the world. To close all things of time, to end the sight of all things visible, and to undo all things that change. Through you is ushered in a world unseen, unheard, yet truly there. Holy are you, holy aware are you, and in your light, the world reflects your holiness, your whole awareness. For you are not alone and friendless. I give thanks for you. Join your efforts on behalf of pure formless awareness. Knowing they are on my behalf as well. And for all those who walk to God, pure formless awareness of perfect love with me. Amen. So just stay in this hopefully deep connected state, in communication with the source, God, Father, Holy Spirit, remembrance of the source. Stay here as long as you want to and need to. Resting here for a few moments in this deep peace, anchor it in. So you can stay rooted in this peace. And so when you're ready, you can just come out. You're ready to come back and carry on your evening in this hopefully more connected, peaceful state. And that brings us to the end of the manual for teachers. So I'm going to move on tomorrow to doing the purpose, processes and practices of psychotherapy. It's a supplement that Helen Chapman wrote, as well as the Song of Prayer after that. Okay, so that's me signing off for the evening. Thank you to Sally and Jackie for joining. And blessings to all of you. There's actually a masterclass in an hour, so you're welcome to join that in 1 hour at 7 p.m. UK time. That's 9 p.m. SA time for a masterclass, which will be somewhat different from the normal ones. So join us then if you can. Hope to see you then. Otherwise, tomorrow next session is tomorrow at 2:30. 2:30 in the afternoon that's UK time to 4:30. We'll be meeting again for another live session. So I hope to see you then, and have a lovely flowing evening in the meantime. Namaste.